Ms. Kalinowski.
Here.
Mr. Bush.
Here.
Vice President Darrow is absent. President McClelland.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have tonight's agenda in front of us. I don't believe we have any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening.
No, thank you.
Without that, could I get a motion for an approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski.
Second.
Mr. Bush. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kalinowski.
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff.
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. That brings us to discussion items. Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, President McClellan. It's my honor this evening to begin by welcoming Dr. Troyer, the Assistant Superintendent, to the podium. Dr. Troyer is going to provide information to the Board of Education and our greater school community related to the student services and well-being initiatives that are ongoing throughout our school district. This is really to summarize work that's dominantly taking place over the last 18 months in the school district. So we're going to take you through a very high-level presentation that may generate more questions than answers depending on specific sections, but we want to make sure that you as a Board of Education and our greater school community at large understand the importance of student services and well-being initiatives that are ongoing across our school campus and how they lift up students every day to support teaching, learning, and ultimately academic achievement and student growth. Dr. Troyer.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers. Members of the board, I'm pleased to be able to share with you this evening some of the work that we've been doing in the area of student services and student well-being. There's really a lot going on that's really exciting in this area in our school district. So I'm pleased to share that with you this evening and to have some colleagues joining me as well who will join in for parts of the presentation. So as you all know, we have a statement of purpose for our district to create a culture of accountability that achieves the best academic and developmental outcomes for each student. We know that students cannot achieve well academically unless they also are healthy socially and emotionally and mentally. So it's important that their developmental outcomes or needs are met so that they can achieve academically. You're all familiar with this diagram by now. This is what we call our bullseye or our target for the district. In the center of the target is student achievement, growth, and well-being. And you can see that around it, there are areas in which we do work. And then this evening, we're going to be focusing on the social emotional area. What do students need socially and emotionally in order to succeed? We also have on our district's continuous improvement plan 7 benchmarks, and one of those focuses on social emotional well-being of students. And so again, it's a priority for the district that we've had in place for a couple of years, and I'm sure will continue into the future. You've also, I'm sure, heard Superintendent Sawyers talk about the R factor. The R factor is a body of work that we're embarking on. We have been working to train staff this year and are going to be starting to work with our students on it very soon. So the R factor, very simply in a nutshell, can be boiled down to the E plus R equals O equation. You have an event that you experience. Something happens to you. It may not be within your control. However, what you can control is your response. That's the R. So that's why we emphasize the R factor. So as we learn to control our responses to events, that then determines the outcome. And so we want to help our students to learn that as well. So we are just launching that work, as I mentioned, and you'll be hearing more about that. We anticipate parent and community information sessions in the coming months, and so there will be lots more on that in the future. You can't really read this whole diagram, but as part of the R factor, we are identifying the values, behaviors, and outcomes that we desire for our students. We've described the Eagle way. We want them to achieve, serve, grow, and lead. We want them to be exceptional. And so then there are lists in that chart of the values, behaviors, and outcomes that we will be focusing on in our R factor work. So to enable us to meet this benchmark, meet the district's statement of purpose and the other goals that we have set, we have lots of services available within the district, and we have great community partners who are helping us to move this work forward. And so that's what we're going to share with you this evening. So In our district, on staff, basically, we have the following groups of individuals who really focus their time on student social emotional well-being. One is our school counselors, another group is our mental health specialists, and another group is our prevention clinicians. And I'll be talking about all three of those. But I want to just pause a minute because I think I saw a few. Yes, we have 3 of our school counselors here this evening. Would you just stand up, please? These are some of our elementary school counselors. We have Kimberly Ministeri, who's at the primary building on the far side, Kimberly Hendry, who is at the Early Learning Center, and Kelly Schubert, who is at the intermediate school. And you will be hearing from Kelly as part of this presentation this evening. Thank you for being here tonight. So our school counselors do lots of things at the high school, especially. They do a lot of academic and career planning and counseling services. They do crisis prevention and intervention. They refer families for outside clinical support when it's needed, just in general, helping students to be the best that they can be. Our mental health specialists are here in the district through a partnership with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. So we have 3 of these mental health specialists, and they focus their work primarily with students who are at risk and students who have disabilities that relate to or impact their social emotional development. They do crisis intervention, referral, support, assessments, and so forth. And then our prevention clinicians are funded through a grant from the Adam H group, alcohol, drug abuse, and mental health. So there's a grant to Concord Counseling who then provides these 2 prevention clinicians to the district, and they are here full time. They address social, emotional, behavioral needs with a real particular focus on screening for mental health symptoms and linking to outside services when they are needed, helping students transition back to campus if they've been outside in an outside placement for mental health reasons, for example, those types of things.
And where are they located?
They are also located full-time on our campus. So Brandy Smith, for example, is at the high school. She serves the middle school and high school. Brittany Morgan serves the younger students, and so she spends her time across the elementary buildings. Yeah, but they are full-time on our campus, funded through an Adam H grant. So at this point, I'm going to ask Kelly to come up and talk a little bit more about the types of things that actually happen and give you a feel for what those services actually look like, as well as some outcome data related to those services.
Thank you. Dr. Troyer and Mr. Sawyers, thank you for the opportunity this evening to share with you the amazing work of our district school counselors. President McClelland and members of the board, school counselors are often asked, what do you do? We would prefer that you ask us how are students different because of what you do. And so tonight I'm going to share with you some of the outcome data to tell you how students are different because of what our work as school counselors do with students. So this first slide tells you some of the topics that our school counselors may provide in addressing students through classroom-based lessons. School counselors are often found in classrooms where they will talk about a variety of topics. In this slide, I wanted to highlight and showcase data from the Signs of Suicide program that our high school counselors delivered to 10th grade students. This really is an impressive slide. Our high school counselors delivered Signs of Suicide curriculum lessons to our 10th graders this fall. And of those students who participated in those lessons, 83% increased their knowledge about depression, suicide, and how to get help for themselves or a friend if they were suspecting that one of their friends may be depressed or suicidal. Really a wonderful and important addition to our high school curriculum. The second piece of data that I want to show to you was after a lesson that was conducted on internet safety by our primary school counselor. With this lesson, our 3rd grade students demonstrated an increase in their knowledge about these very important aspects of being a safe user of digital media. As you look at bullet number 2, you might wonder, what does personal information mean? Personal information means name, address, date of birth. It's not good to share those kinds of things through digital media. And then finally, the last bullet, number 4, you might wonder, what does digital etiquette mean? Well, that simply means being kind online. I like to use the acronym THINK when addressing students about online behavior. The T stands for, is it true? H stands for, is it helpful? I is it inspiring? N, is it needed? Or K, is it kind? If what you're about to post, if you can say yes to all of those, then perhaps it is something that would be okay to post. But we like to teach students to pause a little bit and think before they're actually sharing information. And certainly with our youngest learners, we want to teach them how to be safe and protect themselves from outside sources that often come to them that they haven't even sought through this wonderful digital age. The next data that I want to showcase is from the Early Learning Center. Our ELC has implemented a 4-day instructional rotation for kindergartners, and during these lessons, students receive instruction about specific elements related to positive behavior. A classroom sampling was utilized to assess learning and knowledge and to inform future instruction. But it's really exciting to look at this slide and recognize that 80% or 87% of our kindergarten students recognize behaviors that are associated with cooperation, and 84% of our kindergartners recognize the behavior associated with kindness. As you travel around the district, you will also find our school counselors supporting students in small group settings. The topics vary, but they may include those that are listed on this slide. So the first data element that I want to highlight is a 3rd grade divorce group. As a result of participating in this group, students increased their knowledge for coping with stressors associated with this divorce that they were experiencing in their family. You might find it interesting to note that at the start of the group, only 47% of the students were able to identify at least 3 coping strategies. But by the end, 100% of the students were able to identify 3 coping strategies for managing that stressor. And all of the students improved their sense of peace related to their unique family situation. I'm going to go through these next 3 slides quickly. They highlight data for a 5th grade girls group called ROCKS. ROCKS is an acronym for Ruling Our Experiences, and it is a well-researched program designed to equip girls with the knowledge and skills necessary to live healthy, productive, independent, and violence-free lives. One of the hallmark skills addressed through the ROCKS program is communication. Specifically, the differences between passive, aggressive, and assertive communication styles. And at the end of this group, you'll see that 100% of the students who participated reported that they either improved or significantly improved their communication style. That's pretty exciting to think about our young girls being able to be assertive in their communication. Another area that ROCKS addresses is stress management. 78% of the girls said that by the end of the group, they had either improved or significantly improved their confidence in their own ability to manage the stressors that exist within their lives. And those stressors might be internal stressors, such as a drive to achieve, but they can also be stressors that they might feel as part of their family or their community or within their school as well. Online and digital safety is a 3rd key area that is highlighted in the ROCKS program. In this 5th grade group, 78% of the students reported that they either improved or significantly improved their online safety skills. Those who did not improve, it's interesting to note that they already had reported a high degree of safety skills at the start of the group. But 78% increasing their knowledge about how to be safe online and how to communicate with others is really quite significant. Whoops. Uh-oh. How do I go back? Going back? There we go. I might have clicked ahead. Apology. My slides may not have been matching what I've been saying. So here we go, back to the final one. The final area of the ROPS curriculum that I'm highlighting tonight is personal safety. And this is probably the part of the group that the girls will remember the most, because in this part of the curriculum, the girls actually get to learn and practice self-defense skills, and they get to hit and kick nice padded targets. So it's full of energy and very exciting. And 90% of the girls reported that they significantly improved their safety skills as a result of this particular group experience. Again, those that didn't improve said that they already had a really good knowledge about how to physically address their own safety. Now let me go on now that I'm back on track with my slides. My apologies. School counselors also support grade level, building level, or district-wide programming. Here are a few examples of the type of programming that school counselors might help coordinate and support. So this fall, our middle school students and parents learned about the legalities of sexting through an assembly and a presentation. This topic was chosen because studies are showing that there is a rise in the number of middle school students who are engaging in sexting behavior. And studies are also showing that it's going lower than middle school students as well. But this slide shows that after the assembly, 92% of our middle school students reported an increase in their knowledge about this particular topic. Specifically, they learned that sending a nude picture of themselves or others, or posting a nude picture of themselves or others, is considered child pornography in the eyes of the law. So they could be charged with distributing child pornography if it is sent to someone else. The middle school also chose to host a parent assembly around this topic and to encourage honest conversation among families. This slide shows us that parents found this topic to be most relevant to their lives, and they want more programming that helps them understand the social lives of their children. And finally, the last part of my presentation highlights the work that our school counselors do when working with students one-on-one. As you can see, the topics are endless, but this slide simply represents a few. My final slide shares with you the tremendous impact that even one session can have on the life of a child. Based on a random sampling of students working with the intermediate school counselor, students reported a 23% increase in their overall attitude, behavior, and mood. That means that a student is better able to focus in the classroom, they're attending to instruction, they're able to participate in learning conversations and move through their school day in a more confident way, and confident in their abilities to manage the stressors that brought them to the school counselor's office in the first place. Our school counseling team eagerly greets each day with the knowledge that we will make a difference in the lives of every New Albany student. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you this evening just a snippet of the results that come from the work that our school counseling team does. Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
So how do you pick the topics that you address with students?
It's an excellent question. So often topics kind of emerge organically. We may have a number of conversations with teachers or parents, and we may see that a number of students are experiencing test-related anxiety. As you can imagine, this kind of flares during state testing time or even during district testing time. And so we may focus a small group on that particular skill set related to test-taking anxiety or test-taking skills. It could also be a different topic. We might have a number of families who are dealing with grief, and so we're seeing an influence or an influx of students who are coming to our offices related to grief-related issues. So then we might meet with them individually, but try to start a small group so that they can be a part of a supportive environment with others as well. As far as individual counseling sessions, those come organically from the students themselves. What they bring to the table is where we meet them.
And then
In some of the more specific topics, for example, coping with divorce in your family, are you, it sounds like you end up getting feedback from students that there's a need maybe for the small group?
Absolutely. We often hear from students and families in regard to divorce and separation cases.
And then are we reaching out to the parents and saying, hey, are you comfortable with your child participating in this?
Yes, absolutely. We always check in with the parents to make sure that they are on board with their student participating in a small group setting. And to go back to your original question in regards to how we decide what topics there might be, in terms of classroom lessons or maybe even more building-wide efforts, we rely on our building-wide conversations with our teachers. Perhaps their classroom is dealing with a particular issue. And then also in conjunction with our leadership teams throughout the buildings and the district, we begin to coordinate our efforts to support students at that kind of macro level.
And are the school counselors working in coordination with like the Adam H resources?
Yes, very good question. Our school counselors work hand in hand with both our mental health specialists and the prevention specialists through the Adam H grant, who come to our school through the Adam H grant. So we typically, the school counselors will meet with students first and make a determination as to whether we need to refer the student to the prevention clinician for specific support. And so then we would contact the parents or make that specific referral to the prevention clinician who is with us through the Adam H grant. There are some times when we may have a student who is experiencing a crisis, and I'm in the intermediate building, and let's say I'm tied up because I'm already with a student or a group. The principal or the dean may call upon the prevention specialist to address that student who is in crisis at that time as well. So we do provide a kind of a back and forth support of one another.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as you can see, we're really fortunate in our district to have available to our students the resources we have through the prevention clinicians, the mental health specialists, and our school counselors. But we're also very fortunate to have a whole set of partners in the community that are working with us on this as well. So what I'd like to do now is introduce Rick Baer, a community member who has been instrumental over the past 2 years in helping us launch the Wellbeing Initiative and keep it going. So I'll turn it over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Marilyn. And first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that we're going to have tonight to share with you at a high level the well-being model that we're building out for the district. And the way that we'd like to start out, you can see from this overhead, is we want to share with you, once again, at a high level, a little history about how we got to this point. And then also we want to talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to do this year. And the way that we'd like to start that, if my clicker works, and it did, I've got clicker issues too, Kelly, is we're going to talk about the first, why are we doing this in the first place? And how are we doing it and the benefits? And there's a delay again. Maybe I'll try your way. So this slide right here really kind of says it all. This is one of the main reasons we're doing this. Yes, grades are important, no doubt about that. But if we don't have our mental health, not much else matters. So this is one of the big reasons why. And we all know the sad statistics. And with that, you know, they're the ones that have to do with suicide, with addiction and things like that. So that's another reason why we're doing this. But we like to focus on the hopeful statistics. And this first one, I don't know, well, maybe you board members knew, but I didn't know before I got involved. I don't think most people do, that 70 to 80% of the services that our kids get, they get through the school. So that's another major reason why we want to make sure that we're building the best possible well-being foundation we can for our kids. Because as we all know, you know, once you get through the challenges of school, our problems don't go away as adults. So this is a long-term play to be sure that we're given the best opportunity to build on this as they become adults. And now next, you might have a hard time seeing this, but I wanted to share with you, once again, a little bit about the history, how we got to this point, and our steps going forward. So the first thing that we did is we created a vision, a very powerful vision, and that is that each student possesses a strong sense of well-being. And we defined well-being as being healthy both mentally and physically. And then you can see that our mission is to empower a caring community with the resources that will maximize the mental and the physical well-being of each student. So our overarching goal is to transition what was a very good mental health program into a best-in-class well-being program. Another why and how is we wanted to consolidate all of the current program good pieces. So there was nothing broken in the district, nothing at all. We want to take all those good pieces, put them under one umbrella so that we'd have visibility to what we're doing. And then the real key is it'll be driven by process and focused on measurable desired outcomes, and I'll get to that in just a second. So next below that, you can see the major steps. The first two we've already taken. The first thing we did is we created the foundation we needed to move forward. And we created two teams. We have a community team that has 84 people right now on it, passionate, I might add, and counting. And then we created a district team, and we have 20 district people on that. And then what we did is a complete bottom-up analysis or review of all the programs and all the processes that we had in the district at that time. And as you can imagine, doing that, we found opportunity for new programs and different processes as we built this thing out. So we've identified those, so now we need to execute against that. So the next thing that we did is we're going to be filling the gaps. And the way we're doing that is we created 4 SWAT teams, special working action teams, of which we have 2 of our leaders here tonight that are going to be commenting briefly on what they are doing. And then, of course, as Kelly just pointed out so nicely, measurements are very important. So we'll be measuring a lot of things, especially the scope that the district identified. But as we all know, measurements don't mean anything unless you do something with them, right? So in the spirit of continuous improvement, we'll look at these measurements and we'll figure out ways that we keep advancing whatever it is that we're measuring. And the last thing is we want to communicate our successes and enjoy that. Now, next, you can also imagine there's a whole lot of structure and process behind this, and we don't have time to get into all that tonight, but I did want to let you know that we started with the end in mind. And the way that we did that is, once again, the district, we went back to them and asked them, what's important to you? What would you like to measure and improve over time? And these are the items that they said that they wanted to improve. This is a dynamic list, so it'll be changing over time, but this is what we will be starting with. So with that, what I'd like to do next is introduce somebody that probably needs no introduction, Laura Kohler, and she's going to share with you a little bit about the friend-raising SWAT team.
Thank you, Rick. It's a lot different on this side of the desk.
It's great.
Yeah, it's
Wait
very.
till the question and answer period.
Oh, I'm nervous. I don't remember feeling nervous sitting up there. Thanks very, very much for allowing us to continue this discussion this evening about what I am very excited about, which is a public-private kind of school community partnership approach to well-being for our kids. When we took a look at the scope of what it was that we wanted to be able to accomplish for the children who live in the district and go to school here, we realized, probably with a little bit of help from a former board member who understands how tight resources are, that it wasn't something that the district could take on all alone. And so that's where I came in and very sort of reluctantly actually agreed to champion the fundraising part of this experience. I'm not a fundraiser. I don't like doing it, but I believe so strongly in the mission here that I'm very happy to step up and do this work for you. You can see our team members. They consist of past parents, community members, current parents, and a future parent as well. And all of us are working together to achieve our team objective, which is to educate potential donors on our vision and mission that Rick has described to you already, and the need we have for funding to be able to supply critically important resources to ensure that we are able to maximize our vision, all on behalf of students in the district. So one of the first things we did was to put a strategy together, and we identified 3 potential revenue sources. The first, we believe, will come from individual donors, and you can see that we've identified 3 levels of giving that we are actively soliciting. This is a work in progress, so any feedback you have for us would be greatly appreciated. But certainly individual donors, people who have an interest in well-being, who have an interest in children, who have an interest in our community, are all people who we see as potentially contributing to this important initiative. Corporate donors are the second category that we will be reaching out to. And also we are very well aware of the fact that in a manner similar to the procurement of the Adam H. grant, there are other granting entities out there, and we want to be certain that we deal and reach out to all of them. My last slide, and unfortunately it's small, but really what this points out is a menu of ways that we're providing to people in terms of how they can invest in our children and in our community. And the thing that struck me this evening as I was listening to Kelly speak is the overlap that she addressed: the suicide prevention program, for example, the internet safety and citizenship, the ROCKS program. And the reason that you're going to see so many of the same things listed is because this list was developed with the professionals here in the school district. And what we are trying to do is to be responsive to what you all see as the district's needs. So we all know that kids who are hungry are not going to be able to learn. Kids who are afraid to come to school because of bullying, or kids who are coming from households where drugs and alcohol is a problem, which was my own personal situation as I was growing up. None of those children are going to be able to succeed unless there is a caring, supportive place for them to go. So we all know that we need to address these needs of mental wellness, and before that we can begin to attack the other item in the bullseye. So I'm really pleased to be here. I want to let you know that we are having a kickoff of our initial friend-raising efforts. We're going to be having an event at the home of another former board member, Natalie Matt, and her husband Will, on the 21st of February. And the purpose of that is basically to share more information about the initiative with others in the community who we hope will have an interest. So thank you. And yes.
You know, I'm just thinking, not so much from the individual donation, but maybe the corporate donations. Is there a way that corporations will get recognized? Because I'm thinking about the other big donations that corporations make, and they're listed in bulletins or somehow credited. And I know they like that.
And that's an excellent idea. And I'm going to be perfectly honest and tell you that we had not even thought about it, but it absolutely makes sense.
So can
And
I jump in?
yes,
So the answer to your question is yes, Debbie, because this is done in concert with the New Albany Community Foundation. So
Okay.
the donations actually go to a well-being fund that's been established at the Community Foundation that would receive the same recognition protocols of all the other donors that contribute to the foundation. Some are done anonymously, but some do receive specific public recognition within the literature that's published by the Community Foundation, or that would be published by the school district, again, with their permission. So if they want to be publicly known, then the district would recognize them in addition to the foundation. But the Wellbeing Fund that's being established to support this work, because it's really a wraparound of the community at large in concert with the school district, is actually going through the New Albany Community Foundation. So we're very fortunate to have them as a partner in this process.
That's great. I think, more for the corporate, they're always looking for, well, how can we get some exposure for doing this? It makes sense.
So
Yeah.
is this being set up, is this a setup as a C3? How's it set
No.
up?
Want me to answer that?
yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'm going to sit down now.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Exit stage left. No, it's not at this time. So the way the donations work, they go through the community foundation
Okay.
and then to the school. So
So is the foundation, then the tax deductible
Yes,
entity?
the foundation
Okay.
is the
Yes.
parent organization, then we go to the foundation to withdraw the money back to the school district.
That's good.
And is the fund that's set up, is it controlled by the board? Do you have a board? Or is it the trustees of the foundation who you make recommendations to and then they'll disperse the money?
it's the latter.
Okay. And will there be disbursements strictly to the schools or to broader community initiatives as well around well-being? Which I think is fantastic that you've set it up, but I'm just curious in terms of the
the
breadth
school.
and reach. To the school.
It's
only.
primarily
Okay.
set up for the school right now. And Debbie, to follow up on your question about recognition, you're right, that's very important. And you can see the top, 5 or 6 bullets there. Those are the programs right now the district has identified. There's definitely going to be more. But one of the things we're going to do when we approach the companies is ask them to be interested in sponsoring a specific program, like Kelly was talking about ROCKS, which is a great program, but it costs $4,000 or $5,000 a year. And so we're going to be approaching them with that thought in mind that maybe they might commit to 3 years. We're going to ask for it. And then we'll definitely give them the recognition they deserve for that.
I think that's a great approach too, because I know, especially at the corporate level, people like to be able to specify what the outcome is of their donation.
And also for individuals, if they want to, they can sponsor something maybe near and dear to their heart or partially sponsor. So we can tie it to any of these things and that list will grow. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to mention Laura's team has done is on those 3 categories you saw for generating revenue, they have individual game plans for each one of those. So as she mentioned, we're going to have this big kickoff next week, but then we've already have a number of people that have volunteered to do smaller home events. And in addition to that, for this kickoff meeting, we have, we definitely want to thank, we have a family, anonymous family, that has donated $50,000 up front to, as a matching fund, so that the first $50,000 that people donate, they'll leverage their donation dollar for dollar. So we're hopeful that's going to get us off to a good, fast running start. All right. So with that, if there are any more questions about money, which is very important, well, I'd like to introduce to you Sarah Underhill. And Sarah, you can see, is the leader of our parent education team, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that and her very ambitious plans. But the one thing you can see about Sarah is she knows a lot of people. She's very dynamic and a great recruiter. So turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us today. This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I went to Bexley and was a student who struggled with mental health issues that impacted my grades. I was a high school English teacher at Whitehall and saw how mental health issues impacted students' grades and their happiness. And also, I'm the mother of 3 children who have had different social, emotional, educational needs through the district and have been helped by many of the programs that were mentioned. And so this is something that is so important, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. So yes, that's my team, and we do have some counselors on the team and many parents, and then they have recruited other people, and we have probably 10 more maybe that are hopefully going to join us. And I think that gathering this many people is important because we can leverage that to get the word out, to talk to people about what we're doing. Okay, is this the right one?
Down arrow or?
Oh, this one, okay. Okay, so our objectives are to educate parents on their critically important role in helping their child possess a strong sense of well-being, and also to develop creative ideas and tools approved by the district leadership that will encourage parents to take full advantage of the parent education programs we will offer. So we know that students learn some amazing things here at school. You guys have some wonderful programs, and we really want to get that information to the parents so that there's the same common language that they're learning at school that they can bring home and the parents can continue. So this is really small, but we have 11 areas that we have identified with the help of Superintendent Sawyers and Marilyn Troyer. And so I'm not going to highlight them all, but basically what we've done is I have an advisory team, and then we are breaking that up into smaller teams, and we will work separately on the teams and then come back to the advisory to the main team to report out. So one, for instance, is to research website education for parents. We're hoping to find something that parents can go to on our website that will, you know, if they're getting worried, if they're seeing some signs of things, there's some really good education that could help them to understand what's going on, to lead them to maybe get some help for their kids, or to understand maybe even if it's like, if there's stress and anxiety, maybe there are some breathing techniques or something like that they can use. So we're hoping that there would just be something out there that was just packaged and just teed up for us. We have not found that, and so we have a team with some really talented people that are going to be working on that. And then another thing, I mean, we will be promoting events. So for instance, the forums that we've been working on, speakers, R-Factor parent education. We will help to prevent that. And something that I'm really passionate about is that, you know, we send out emails. We get so many emails in a day, and sometimes that doesn't get people there. But if we have a large community of people who are passionate about this, we can get our friends there. We can talk to people. We can get more people to these events. And I think that's really important to really kind of focus on that community. And I think I could go on and on, but I'll leave it at that. But I'm just really excited for this opportunity and to really help parents get engaged in the well-being of their kids.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Thank you all for being here. This is really helpful. So I'm a little unclear on your group's kind of communications with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Will your groups be communicating directly with parents?
It would all be through the school. Yeah, we would, you know, it's all worked out through the school. So for instance, the R-Factor, they will be coming up with a plan for how to get this information out to parents, and then we will be helping them to promote it. So
you're more behind the scenes?
Right.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
I would say behind the scenes, but at the same time, physically and verbally on the front line,
Okay.
because
Right.
you have the opportunity to spread the word and
Mhm.
ultimately get to different audiences. Like if we send an email, you could forward the email, but we'll help create that material specifically with the parent team and the sub teams that are basically being now subdivided into specific working groups to try to help the school district help us understand what groups are we missing? How could we communicate with them? What else could we do? How do we reach these people to make sure they at least have the opportunity to consider to participate or to consider to plug in? And if they can't come, to have video access or access to an electronic resource or some other tool that's created based upon the input from the parents. And it's really a think tank kind of opportunity when you think about Sarah's team and working with these different subgroups of parents throughout our school district that really touch pre-K through 12 to understand, okay, here's a pocket of parents you're missing, and this is what you need to do to try to get to them. And this is what it would mean if you send it this way, you might get them to engage with you differently. So we're looking for that direct connect to have direct feedback from Sarah's team and the work that we're trying to structure for the school district.
So I'm just going to touch on what you mentioned, which is, as a parent in the district, we are inundated with communications and we don't always get to read everything. And I'm trying to think of the branding of this and how it is branded in a unique way that gets attention, but also says it's part of the school district, because you don't want people thinking that this is something completely disconnected from the district when they see the branded initiative. So yes, I'll let her that.
Oh, somebody actually stage left again. Stay with me, baby. So no, that's a great point. First thing we should point out is that everything we do, we run through the district. So as an example, I meet with Marilyn every 2 weeks. And before we even think about going down some road, I check with Marilyn and Michael to be sure it's the right road to go down, number one. Number two, we are branding this, and we're going to be rolling that out in the very near future. And when you look at, in fact, for the first time, I used it on the first slide. That should have looked kind of familiar to you. And so we are branding this in a way that they'll understand, what we're doing. So does that answer your question?
Can I see the branding? Do you have it?
I did not bring that with me,
Okay.
but I'd be more than happy to share that with you. Anything else you'd like to see?
I think we can.
We can go back to the beginning. Yeah, we can show you that logo. Okay, so if you see this logo here, this is going to be part of our branding, and our tagline is a mind matters?
A healthy mind.
A healthy mind matters, sorry. A healthy mind matters is our tagline. And in fact, we're in the process of purchasing a pop-up booth and also these pop-up signs. And because one of the things she had on there that we couldn't see, I'm the one that created the slides, it was my fault, is they're going to promote this brand and what we're doing and well-being at a lot of different events throughout the district and throughout the community.
So
My only concern is to me, that doesn't show me any connection to the school. So I don't know if you would want the school brand side by side with it. I would want to be clear in some way that this isn't a separate, that you want to be clear that it's a partnership
So
with
for
the
example,
school.
I think if I'm following you right, so why blue and not maroon and gold? That's just out of curiosity, because when I first saw that, personally, when I first saw the logo, I thought, oh, they took the school logo and they modified it a bit, and that makes sense. So can you just expound on
Sure.
that?
The reason that we took blue, there's two reasons. One is it stands out a little different than the red. But the other one is the color blue and the meaning of it. It's a more passive color, a more calming color, more, if you will, mental health, well-being color whenever we did the study and we talked to the branding people. So that's why we came up with that. Your point and your question is a good one, and I think what we need to do maybe is take a step back and kind of reflect on that, and maybe we can have some dialogue offline to figure out the best way to do this to be sure we meet your needs, because we're doing this totally in concert with the district.
I know, we just
And,
want
I
to make
mean-
sure we're sending that message then.
No, and that's fine, and we'd love to talk more about that. We can figure that out together. Is that okay, Debbie?
That sounds great.
Okay, good, good.
Rick and Laura and Sarah. knew I was going to do that. No, I just want to say thank you for your leadership in getting this going. I think, again, this is what we all love about New Albany is the community sees a need. They look for ways they can help. Getting a private-public partnership going like this, I think, is fantastic. Using the foundation as a vehicle, which everybody knows the foundation. If you're attached to them and you're attached to Michael at the hip, then we know that you've got our best interests in mind and you're trying to do all you can to help us out. So I agree. Let's take this other stuff online. There's a way we can improve it. Let's do it. But I just want to say thank you. And this is fantastic to hear that you've taken this on for our community and for our school community.
Well, thank you. And I'm kind of wrapping this up, and I'm open for any questions you have, as long as they're not tough ones, Debbie. No, we'll figure that out. I'm sorry. But I did want to mention this slide here. I want to thank these two young ladies over here because they really are great leaders, and they're stirring up a lot of stuff and going to do a lot of good things for the kids in the community this year. There's no doubt about it. They have very ambitious plans, but I have a lot of confidence in them. But we are making some progress. I know you can't read this slide. It's not all the progress we've made, but it's all I could get on one slide. And the other thing is there's a lot more detail, like I mentioned earlier. We're more than happy to get into whatever level of detail you would about anything on this. And in summary, I would just share with you that our team, we feel like we're doing some really important work for all of our stakeholders, especially the kids, the parents, and the faculty and the staff. And we also, for what it's worth, feel like we're doing some rather unique work because, at least to date, we haven't found anybody in the country that has a model like this. So we think it's pretty unique. But at the end of the day, our team is about one thing. And by the way, we're in the process of integrating everything we're doing within the district. And Michael, I don't know if he's shared that with you yet, but he's put together an integration team. So we're not going to be an external team here. We're going to move everything inside. And I think it's really a smart thing on his part, and more to come on that. But at the end of the day, our team, which is the district team and the community team, we're focused on one thing, and that's to maximize that vision that I mentioned, that we want to maximize the well-being of each student. And so with that, I want to thank you also for your time tonight. And if there are any more questions, easy ones, I'm more than happy to answer them.
I would just like to echo what Paul said and just thank you for what I know has been months of work. And to have so many people, I mean, I know that's probably not even the whole list of people.
There's over 100.
But to have so many people who are willing to invest their time in our kids is, that speaks to the wonderful community that we have. And I also love that I have a former board member working on it, a couple of former board members working on it. And I don't know how you have the time being on the state board and all that other stuff, but just this is truly one of those things that makes New Albany special. And thank you all for your work.
Well, it's totally our pleasure. And it's interesting what you just said, because this is the first time I've really been involved with our community at this level. I mean, I led kind of a sheltered life. I was a business guy and my family, and really didn't do much other than that. And I heard about what you just said about how it's such a special community and a caring community. But I know it firsthand now because I'm out talking to a lot of people, and it's amazing. I mean, we have some not only good people, but passionate people, and people really care about this issue, about our kids, and about our community. So it's been a lot of fun being a part of this. So
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
You know, is there anything else like this in the country that schools are doing?
So we haven't found it. I'm not saying that there's not, but there are some companies that provide programs nationally that I've networked through to try to find other people. That's the first thing that we did when we thought about doing this is let's don't reinvent the wheel. But we haven't been able to find anybody. So not saying there are, but and in fact, this is something that, you know, behind the scenes, we're building this model that potentially we could offer up to other broader districts and things, potentially. But right now, we're focused 100% on making this work the best we can for our community.
Well, it's really exciting. And I know it's, based on all volunteer work. And it's so appreciated. And I completely agree that children's emotional well-being is more important than their grades. Nothing else falls into place unless that's in place. And so if we can be a leader in this area with all of your hard work and a partnership with the schools, I think it falls right in line with our statement of purpose and what we're trying to achieve for children. So thank you so much for partnering with us.
Well, I've got one other thank you, actually two other thank yous. I want to thank this guy right over here, all right?
For sure.
Michael, because I've thought about this for a long time without getting a lot of details, but when I went to talk to Michael and Marilyn, and I had my first conversation with him, and he showed me the bullseye, and I saw well-being at the center of it, I thought, we're going to make this happen, all right? And so he is extremely passionate about this and the kids. And Marilyn, she puts up with me every 2 weeks. And that list that you see up there is because of her, all right? She's really moved a lot of things along. And it's been fun getting to know her too. So.
And the only other point that I would add for where you went, and it's really thank you, Rick and Dr. Troyer, for all the work that's happened. And there are over 100 volunteers that are now working on different parts and aspects of this, and or staff members. But, we're very fortunate, and it's really one of the best kept secrets within the school district. And I've said that publicly at a couple meetings, including the community forum. But there are 9 full-time school counselors in our school district. There are 3 mental health specialists that Dr. Troyer talked about that we hire through the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. But they're full-time employees on our school campus, helping students daily, in addition to the 9 school counselors, and then the 2 prevention clinicians that are currently funded through the Adam H. grant with Concord as the service provider. So it's not known widely or fully understood that these 14 people every single day provide direct student support services, and it's really student services, to our school district to meet their really educational and social, emotional, and developmental needs on a daily basis. And you really tonight only saw a sliver of just examples of that work, because the exemplars that were shared are very powerful. But on a daily basis, there's nearly 5,000 kids on this school campus that are not the same. We don't manufacture widgets, we educate kids. And we're very fortunate to be in a business that has that honor every single day to educate kids. But it's really the partnership that goes back to the whole child, and the whole child consists of the whole school and our whole community. And there's a lot of research, and we didn't go through all that tonight, on whole child education and what it means going back for decades in education. But we're trying to learn from that to create the model that this is what we need in New Albany to basically meet our educational outcomes, to fulfill the statement of purpose. And Laura remembers this as well as all of you, because at the time, Laura was on the board when you went through the development of the statement of purpose, and there was actually juried conversation amongst the Board of Education with the leadership in the school district when we talked about the developmental outcomes. And it was very purposeful on our part to include that in the statement of purpose because of what happens for kids every day on the school campus and in life. And I think that's important, that we have to pause and recognize that we focus and we have very high expectations when it comes to student academic achievement as well as student growth. But we also have to have the conversation about educating the whole child and addressing the social emotional needs that some of them need supports for in order to be successful in this academic environment. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about all those things publicly. We're trying to figure out how to take some of these best kept secrets that are part of the daily interactions amongst kids in our school district, either through educational programs, social emotional programming, or direct small group works at the individual level for a kid, and help parents understand. And Rick is right in the research, and that's 6.5 to 7 hours a day. We have a huge responsibility in this thing called school, because not every kid gets that at home. And we're fortunate in New Albany, we have wonderful, wonderful families, but we still have kids in need. So we do have kids that present issues every single day. And the R factor that's coming is really a system. It's meant to create a common language between home and school, but dominantly in our school-based environment, to try to help kids understand their behaviors and how their behavior and what Becky's behavior is and Michael's behavior becomes an event for someone else. So my R is your E, and we're going to start learning about that from a kid perspective as we look towards spring. But we're very fortunate to have all these resources either at the school, as a staff member, as a faculty member, as a grant-funded position. And we're still writing grants. We just applied for a drug and alcohol counselor for the middle school and high school dominant areas of the school district through Adam H. And we're hoping we're going to get the funding for that because there's a defined need. So we're addressing these needs, but we're going to start publicly talking more about them because we can't pretend they don't exist. They do, even in communities like New Albany, because guess what? They're still kids. And that's part of the learning process that takes place, is that you're going to make some choices in life that we need to help support you in order to be successful both in and out of classroom and in and out of this thing called life. So we're very, very fortunate to have these partnerships. Over 100 parents currently at the table. I'm sure there will be more, but thank you for the countless hours, both faculty, staff, and volunteers that you've put into this process, and particularly Marilyn and Rick, because you've been spearheading this cause for 18 months, and we're kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and going public tonight that we've done a lot because we had to get our house in order to understand what we are doing today, where we have gaps, and how we continuously improve for the future, because it comes back to nearly 5,000 kids need that benefit on our school campus every single day. So thank you again on behalf of the administration and the board. You ready to transition, Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to kind of continue in this same theme, but switch gears because we also, because of this topic tonight, want to do the public update on the Hanover Social Emotional Learning Survey that we talked about at last month's or our last Board of Education meeting in January when we released the Gallup results. So this is a quick overview of the SEL survey from Hanover that I've asked Dr. Troyer to please walk through this evening. Dr. Troyer?
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers and members of the board. As we've mentioned before, we work with Hanover Research, and they have helped us over the last couple of years with a variety of projects that we've done. And as a result of that partnership, we actually benefited in a big way from being able to pilot test this survey of students in grades 3 through 12 on their social emotional learning and needs. Hanover works with a number of school districts, and there was actually another district that asked them to develop this survey, and that really covered the cost of developing the survey. But they were looking for other districts to also use it so that they could get benchmarks in terms of results. So we were able to, without any additional expense to the district, be able to use this survey. And it fits so well with our goal in benchmark number 5, and that's to administer age-appropriate student climate surveys to measure the percentage of students who feel safe at school, supported, and have at least one staff member that they can approach with problems. So when this opportunity came along, we just jumped on it because we knew that it was tied in so well with what we were already doing. So there was no cost to us to administer this web-based survey. As I mentioned, we did grades 3 through 12 because it is an online survey in which you have to do some reading. We did this initially in December. And since it's a brand new survey, there's no national norms yet. So we really can't compare ourselves to a broad norm at this point. So, thank you. All questions were scored on a continuum from strongly agree to strongly disagree, a 1 through 5 continuum. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of the things from the survey. So the survey did measure a number of dimensions, 11 of them that you can see listed here, from the support that they feel they have, the school culture, social issues, confidence, anxiety, all of these things that you see listed were covered in this survey. Just to highlight a few of the results here, you can see that 77% of our students either agreed or strongly agreed that they have 5 adults that they trust and can turn to for help. So that's great. 79% agreed or strongly agreed that their teachers know their name and something special about them. Only 8% said no one supports me when I need help. So we do have some students who feel that way, but as you can see, 92% feel that they do have the support when they're in need of help. A question about strategies. I ask someone when I need help. 73% agreed or strongly agreed. And I know how to handle significant stress. 53% agreed or strongly agreed. So we can see a theme kind of emerging from this slide and the next one, that being able to cope with stress is one that we really need to focus on for our students. And these, we're highlighting, students feel that they can study well for a test, 71%, that they're good at completing their homework, 81%, that they have strategies to resolve conflict peacefully, 69%. And this is an area where the R factor strategies will come into play, where hopefully that number will begin to climb over the coming months and years. I am stressed, 43% agreed or strongly agreed. I worry about my homework, 47% agreed or strongly agreed. So we can see that there are areas where we can work to help our students. There were a number of other areas as well, but we're not going to go through all of those this evening. This is just kind of a sampling of that. So in terms of planning for the future, we've shared the data. We've divided it up into the school buildings and shared that with each building administrator. Those building teams then will look at the data and will analyze where are the areas that they really should focus and bring awareness of how our students are handling that life-school balance. As I mentioned, the R factor implementation at the student level will start next month, and that will address a number of these items. And then we will also post and share the survey results. So there's many, many more results than what I shared this evening. This is just a quick snapshot, but those will be made available publicly. So with that quick overview, are there any questions or comments?
Marilyn, the 5 adults, was that asked in the context of the school or just any 5 adults?
That one was any 5 adults.
That was surprisingly high that they could name 5.
Yeah.
That's good.
Did you see any red flags?
I think probably the ones we noticed the most were the ones related to stress. Yeah. And the stress.
What's the definition of stress from a kid's perspective? So when they read the question, if I'm a 3rd grader, how do I interpret stress versus I'm a high school student? So it's part of what we have to work with the school counselors to help understand within their environments. That's why it went back to the buildings. The data will get disaggregated, and the conversations amongst building leadership with the school counseling team to have that discussion to try to help us understand what else can we do to be responsive to the kids. So that process is now underway. Again, we were fortunate from Hanover to have access to it. This was very, very comprehensive. It's 110 plus questions, depending on the level, compared to the 24 high level questions that are global at Gallup. So part of that will lead to a decision at the end of the year. Now that this has been introduced into the school district, is this something we would want to continue based upon the input and feedback we'll receive from the teams at the building level now that the data is back? Is it more meaningful? Is it more actionable? Can we create action plans based upon the level of data that's been presented versus the global aspect of the national norming? So we'll talk about that internally. It's already come up amongst leadership, but what does this mean for the future? Will be one of the decision points we'll have to make at the end of the year.
And this was grades
3 through 12.
And so those results were the aggregate?
Yes, the results I shared tonight were 312.
Right. And we'll send to you, because it'll be part of the public release. Jess Mamias, the coordinator of assessment and accountability, has disaggregated the data into building/grade level. So we have the disaggregation done. We just didn't go through that tonight because of the scope of the amount of data that's in this voluminous spreadsheet. We'll get you a summary. So Jess is working on that because we intend to use it for faculty and staff to help understand without going through the entire spreadsheet. Here's what it can tell you so that it becomes very meaningful at the building and classroom level for age-appropriate conversations.
Well, and it's interesting too, the way that it ties into the well-being initiative, because, for example, if it's 5 adults and many of those adults are parents, right. How do we help educate parents on when a kid says I'm stressed, you know, what do you do and how do you help them cope, and equipping everyone to help create a whole well-being model for kids.
Well, it leads to conversations. We've talked about this within the parent team when we did the community forum on stress and anxiety. When we talk to kids during the student day, And it's not a criticism, but kids will tell us, my teacher stresses me out. My mom stresses me out. My dad stresses me out. My coach stresses me out. We need to understand, well, what are they doing that you believe is causing you stress? What is that definition? Because we need to understand from their perspective, they hear the word stress. How are they identifying that that's actually the behavior that's actually occurring? Goes back to, that's the event. So John's event becomes my response. So whatever John's doing to me to cause me that stress, I need to decide what I'm going to do in response to what John is doing. That's part of the R factor learning that's coming to help the kids have a common language that they can communicate with us about.
And it looked like one of the results was that students aren't necessarily telling anyone when they have a stressor.
Right.
Was that one of the things I read?
I don't know that it was on one of the ones we had. Well, I know how to handle, and I ask help. Yeah, for help.
I ask for help.
Yeah, right.
So 27% of the kids don't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Troyer. So as Board of Education members can see, there's a significant amount of work that's occurring related to CIP benchmark number 5 and 7, specifically for the work that we're doing in relationships to statement of purpose. At the next Board of Education meeting on February 26th, we're going to go back and revisit the other CIP benchmark goals, and I'll have more of an academic data focus because I shared with you that we were waiting on the final MAP data to come back in from winter testing. That's here. So we'll have some disaggregated data to share with you specifically on their benchmark data on academics at the next meeting. So tonight was really the introduction for mental health, the celebration of all the work that has been completed to date. And it's really just the beginning because there's more work to clearly be done, but we're well on our way. So you'll see these updates in the CIP benchmark information that you'll receive from me. Any other questions that we can answer related to tonight's presentations?
So just to clarify, are you trying to decide between Hanover and Gallup? No.
Not at this stage.
Okay.
We're still in that process of unpacking it to understand what the data is telling us and whether that is something we'll continue in the future. We'll seek that input for basically what's happening through the building action plans based upon the data.
Okay.
So we want to see what that outcome is based upon how they use the data. But I will tell you, just from our observation, there's a significant amount of information available to us as a result of the comprehensive SEL survey, social emotional learning survey that was conducted by Hanover.
Yeah, it seems very specific.
It's very comprehensive. And it's concrete. It gives us things that we can clearly create an action plan on versus, okay, how do we help kids dream about entrepreneurial aspirations? And what does that look like? Because that's one of our lowest scores in Gallup. But students have a hard time imagining I'm going to open my own business before I graduate from high school. That's not how most of them think. So we're trying to understand it and we're learning from it. That's part of our goals to be a learning organization. So we have that responsibility. The last discussion item this evening is board policy. Dr. Troyer, Mrs. Jenkins, and I can answer any specific questions you have relative to the board policies that are presented this evening for revision and or recommendation as a new policy. There's 2 specifically that are new. Within the first financial realm, 6605 is presented for crowdfunding because it's being introduced based upon changes in state statute. It then changes other board policies to incorporate crowdfunding into the current board policies that exist related to student fundraising and relationships with special interest groups. So the first one on crowdfunding touches 3 different policies specifically. Cell phone allowance is just updates. We no longer have district-owned cell phones. Everything is basically a stipend that's provided to employees that are authorized on behalf of my office to have necessity for 24/7 communication with the school district. So it's my head custodial staff, the head custodians, your building admins, and your central office administrators that receive a cell phone allowance for us to have the ability to call them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. At whatever wonderful time in the morning that we need to, but we no longer have district-owned cell phones. It used to be that we did have district-owned cell phones and we distributed them and then basically got them back from people when they left. We're modernizing all the policies. We don't issue cell phones anymore. People use their own cell phone, and we pay them an allowance for the 24/7 access. The district use of communication devices is, again, just statutory change to talk about the acceptable use and ultimately access. Again, letters of reference, animals on district property, environmental health and safety issues, and emergency situations at school all had legislative updates within the last 60 to 90 days based upon changes of state statute that became effective. The same thing with the AED. It's really a location change in the language specifically for the state on where they're located throughout your school campus. Student abuse and neglect was updated based upon a change in emergency contact information. And then incidental transportation of students by private vehicle was updated to make clear what the new requirements are for liability insurance for private transportation of a small group of students with parent permission. So this would be example, it's Saturday morning, there's 2 kids that want to go to a robotics competition. The 2 kids aren't going to be transported by a bus. It's impractical to take 2 kids to a robotics competition. You have one parent that wants to drive. The other parent gives that parent permission to take the other student. So the other student then is in the motor vehicle owned by the parent that's being transported with the other student participating. So there's now a legal process that basically allows for incidental transport, is what it's called. So again, it's just update, but there's only 2 new policies that are really presented this evening. Everything else is a revision based upon current changes in state statute.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We have our first opportunity for public participation. With none, I'll move on to superintendent's items. If I get a motion to approve a motion on superintendent's items A and B.
So moved.
Second.
Newmoff, Ms. Kalinowski, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, President McClellan. Board members, tonight the action items and personnel are standard that you see for a normal board agenda through resignations for the school district or contract specifically for replacement personnel for non-teaching faculty or staff. Letter B this evening are general business items for the approval of a maintenance vehicle and or field trips. We have a 1998 dump truck on our school campus that is having some hydraulic issues. We've had not the easiest winter to date. We're limping along, but it's time to face the fact that we also need to make sure that we have the ability to salt all of our parking lots without any hydraulic lift issues on our current dump truck. So we're recommending the purchase of a new dump truck that will hopefully last as long as the current one has. And the second is field trip recommendations. And again, all this information has been presented to Dr. Troy and myself for review, and we're recommending the support of the extended learning opportunities for students on the field trips that are presented this evening.
Any questions? With none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Newmoff,
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. Now I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski,
Second.
Mr. Bush. Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff.
Yes.
President McClelland.
Yes. We are adjourned. Our next meeting is Monday, the 26th at 6:30.